I'm your Muslim of color of YouTube Dual Saints. That is E.D. Lewis. We are here to talk some more Dark Shadows. We're here to talk about the kidnapping and escape of Maggie Evans, and talk about her being stalked by Barnabas, which conveniently starts where Maggie works. Where I guess he would stalk any living person. Um, oh God. Uh, so Maggie Evans is closing up shop for the night. As any normal person would. And as she does, you see a shadow on the figure, and no reflection in the mirror, and it's our buddy Barnabas, who startles her a bit. So, Edie, man, what did you think of this here? That this start to the build up to kidnapping Maggie, because a lot of stuff happens.
I think it was a good way to introduce the two characters to each other and further introduce us to Barnabas since he was still pretty new at the time.
Now, I want to make this very clear. Now, is there any actual mention prior to this of Maggie looking like Josette? No, there is not. Now, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. There's an episode where where Victoria was kidnapped by Matthew Morgan. She's sitting behind the bookcase. The ghost of Josette appears. You hear a voice, and you can kind of see a little bit of a face. Well, guess what? Guess whose voice and face that is? It's Catherine Lee Scott's. that Now that might feel like forever ago to some people because when this episode hits, initially at that time, I don't know, but it's fun to go back and watch it. So, what did you think of that? Because they really, prior to all this, they really don't mention that Maggie looks like Josette at all.
Hmm. Um, at the time when I was seeing it, I'd not seen the earlier episodes. I was seeing these on VHS
Yeah.
actually about 20 years ago, just a couple months ago, actually. Would have been 20 years that I saw these. Um, and I didn't really have much of a thought. I just thought, oh, that's kind of cool that, she looks like somebody from the past. Um, but having the context of Vicky, when she was kidnapped by Matthew Morgan and she thinks that she looks like Josette, I thought was a rather interesting turn to have Maggie be the victim instead.
Yeah, because when Vicky is saved by the ultimate ghost, in a sense, like prior to this, like there's a point that's brought up that the last time, you know, a woman in white, if you will, Josette, tried to save somebody was like Elizabeth's aunt or something to that effect. It's somebody that helped the Collins family member. So it's like, wait, so does that make Vicky a Collins? Question mark. No, no, we'll discuss that in another time. Uh, he's an anxious not discussion. Uh, but I'm going to give a spoiler. No, Vicky is not a Collins, so I'll get into that later some other time. But there's proof of this. Uh, with this though, they go into the diner. She pours him some coffee, and you hear you hear the dogs howling, um, which scares Catherine, the Scott's character. Catherine does a great job selling. Uh, and after Barnabas leaves, he leaves his cane on purpose behind. Which this brings me to where Carolyn left a piece of jewelry for Bert to return to her way back when, like beginning episodes. That feels like forever ago by the time we get to this. And when Joe walks in, she's like, "Hey, I had a visitor. Did you pass the Barnabas Collins?" He's like, "No, I didn't see anybody." And they see his cane. They're going to end up taking this back to the old house. Uh, what did you think of this here? Barnabas is basically playing a little cat and mouse game without two people realizing it.
Insanely clever. What better way to get the fly to come into your web, so to say.
Yeah. What did you think of Jonathan's chemistry with the cast? I mean, he hell of an actor.
Mm. He had great chemistry with everybody, I feel, on the show. Some more than others, especially Grayson. But yeah, I think he had great chemistry, especially even with Catherine Lee Scott and John Carlin, especially in these episodes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because Carlin's there's a big difference between Carlin's Williams and Jim Grady's Williams. Not just literally, but figuratively, historically, the way the characters start off, the way
Mm.
how they're introduced. It's a holy shit. Because Willie, I mean, Willie goes from thief who will willingly commit murder to, I mean, humble. I mean, completely humble. What did you think of that? Because again, you're not seeing Barnabas in association with Willie when he's in the blue whale because Jason's looking for him,
Mhm.
and when he see him, I know this has nothing to do with Maggie. But I want to get your thoughts on this. What did you think of John Carlin's Willie Loomis, the way he was introduced versus the change the character went post Barnabas?
Definitely went from this sleazy danger guy into, kind of a, how do I want to put it? Not quite well, kind of sniveling, Freddy Cat, he's scared of everything. He's always nervous. I think that's much better. Nervous as opposed to before, where he was very confident.
And I agree. Very, very good character. So Maggie and Joe take the cane back to Barnabas. Will and he, you have this clever little trick that the writers said we're going to split the characters up. Joe goes upstairs to look for Barnabas. Maggie stays downstairs, and Barnabas appears out of nowhere, which he's in the basement, but still. And by the time he comes back down, their conversation is finished. And I love what John Carlin questions why were they here? You know, when you see Willie and Barnabas, he goes, "Oh, they were turning our king." He goes, you just didn't just leave that there." He's kind of on to Barnabas. What did you think of all that sequence? It was very, very well acted by everyone.
Uh, it definitely plays into his cunningness.
Yeah.
And I mean, which even more so of the character, because we'd only seen him mostly interacting with the family, and now we get to see him interacting with somebody else.
Because his interactions with Jason aren't his interactions with Maggie. I feel like, you know what I
Mm,
mean? Like they're much more deliberate because he's seeking her in a sense. He knows this looks like Josette in his mind. You know, no matter what you tell him. Do you? Because I've heard so many people say this. Do you feel Barnabas's brain is kind of scrambled from being in the coffin all those years?
oh yeah, definitely has left some sort of uh, emotional damage to him, being trapped for 170 years or so.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try to do the math right now, but yeah, that's good enough for me. It's been a long time. Um, because in all fairness to our buddy Barnabas, and again, I'm going to play defense attorney here. Um, he, from a character standpoint, everything we know, he did not expect to be alive. He expected his father to kill him off. I mean, because I mean, there at the time, I mean, he was colder than Josh with nobody. So he's you figure he's going to do the deed. Not so much. He chains his son up, figuring nobody will find his ass, and somebody does, and that somebody is our buddy Willie Loomis. Uh, how unfortunate for him, but fortunate for us. So that's sort of the interesting part of this because when he comes out of that coffin, he talks to the portrait of Jose, and it the writers did not know where they were taking Fritz Barnabas really. So they start off with this angle. Okay, we're going to have him kidnap Maggie. We're going to present the cheat to him. That's Josette, which I think is an interesting concept. But you do get a lot of psychological terror here with Barnabas without the bloodletting, so to speak. What did you think of
Um, I'm not really sure. Can we come back to it?
it? Sure, I'll
Okay.
talk about the episodes more because the build up to this is very good. Because prior to the kidnapping, Barnabas asked Sam Evans, spoiler alert, who's Maggie's father, to commission a portrait, a new portrait of Barnabas. That's going to hang above the fireplace in the old house. Josette's portrait is back in her old room for Maggie's sake and nobody else's. Um, no matter what our buddy Barnabas says. Uh, and I like what this because we're going to find out later on. So David Ford playing uh, Josette Dupre's dad, Andre Dupre, awesome, awesome. Uh, very full circle moment here. But here, before we find all that out, he gets commissioned to do a portrait of Barnabas. He goes, "Oh, can you do it at the old house by candlelight?" Sure, $1,000, $1,000, and oh, by the way, I'm going to kidnap your daughter too. But not that he says that, but we all know it's coming. Um, is this like the ultimate of hey, you're getting paid, but you're gonna lose something in the process? Like how insane is this, dude? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I do like how they do the sit-ins though, because there's a moment where David Ford, Sam Evans, is painting, and he hasn't quite got the right light or right pose from Jonathan's character.
Hmm.
Finally, he sees something that's close to center. Hold it right there as the sun's getting ready to come up. That was funny right
It
there.
was.
Because I'm thinking, and by the time he's gone, Willie, he's like, "Hey, where'd Mr. Collins go?" He went away somewhere. I got to take you home. Come on. Well, just like, what did you think of that entire sequence? Our buddy Sam's getting hired to do a portrait, which he hasn't done in some time. So they do find some usefulness for some of the other characters when it pertains to Barnabas.
Uh, yeah, he hadn't had much work and except for when he was working on Laura's portraits and stuff. Um, I think it was a great character building, and it furthered back to the chemistry again between the two characters. I also feel like that Sam was rather surprised though to see Willie. I don't know if he knew that Willie, if news had reached him that Willie was working for Barnabas or not. And so I feel like that was another shock besides Barnabas just disappearing like that. Um, but excellently acted sequence, and it was great casting, moving David Ford into that role versus the original guy who played in the very first couple weeks or so.
Yeah, the other guy who plays him was a bit taller, um,
Mm.
and they recast again. He's in the first time you meet Sam Evans is actually that guy playing him. It's in episode 5. and you're introduced to him of all places at Widow's Hill. Now, despite Sam Evans being an alcoholic, you do not meet him in the Blue Whale. That's one that's for books right there. You meet him on top of Widow's Hill, but it makes sense too when you consider what both actors do because Sam Evans walks around a lot looking for inspiration for paintings. Okay, that makes sense. So here, you're right. Sam Evans hasn't done the last thing they really do with him outside of lore because he gets his hands burned by the
Mm.
paintings. So he stopped painting for a while because his hands had to be healed up. And then the next thing they do with him to sort of wrap up another arc that started Dark Shadows was the manslaughter charge. So that's really the last thing they do with him prior to Barnabas coming out of the coffin. So they haven't done it for a little while that at least feels important. So here they're giving him something to do. Which the hand burning was cool as shit. That was
Yeah.
awesome. Cool with that. We'll get into that someday. But here he's stalking Maggie. What did you think of Maggie's dream sequences of her being in the coffin? Then they show Maggie as a skeleton screaming. How awesome was that?
Oh, very well done and perfect for these early episodes, especially in black and white. I don't think it would have the same effect if they had done it later after the show had gone to color. Um, I feel like this dream sequence, personally, I think it was the most surreal of any of the dream sequences they had done through the entire course of the show.
Yeah, because the it's weird because when you compare it to the Dream Curse has some terrifying moments in it,
Mm.
like for sure. But this here is just pure blood, pure terror. It's pure classic early terror, like from something you see from the 30s or the 40s. And not just because it's in black and white, but the way they shoot this is
Mm.
stunning. It's awesome. I agree. It's so cool. But there, Maggie is bit, if you will. Um, Again, you don't. That's the thing too. With all the biting you see, even Willie's blood, he's bit on the wrist because he's a guy. They don't. That's sort of the thing Dark Shadows didn't want to do at first. They didn't want to have another man biting another man on the neck. Okay, that's fine. So they bite him on the wrist. Um, with with Maggie, that's not a problem. We can bite her on the neck. So they do, and Maggie is tortured while she's like basically not tortured, but kind of mentally tormented by
Mm.
Barnabas. And Barnabas is also scaring the hell out of Victoria Winters. She's also babysitting Maggie right before the kidnapping happens. What did you think of that whole sequence of Maggie being kidnapped? Just the sound effects they pull off because they're pulling off the dog sound effects. The shadowy figure, which is the figure of Barnabas standing out the uh, in silhouette, if you will. What did you think about it?
They're definitely going for the full terror effect, um, and much less horror like they end up doing in later episodes. Uh, Something I particularly liked about with those sequences was like when they had when Vicky's sitting right there next to Maggie, or maybe she'd gotten out, I don't remember, and the doors to her bedroom are shaking when the dog sounds are right outside the door.
Yeah,
That
you're
was
right.
really cool.
Yeah, you're correct. She is sitting right there. They're shaking and they're howling. There's also that sequence when the doors open and you see
Mm.
Fritz like silhouette, which is just holy shit. They're pulling out all the stops to scare the hell out of the audience too. It's not just solely for Maggie and Vicky. It's for the audience too. Which is cool, which is something you want to see in a gothic soap opera. Uh, so Maggie is eventually, yes, kidnapped. Surprise, surprise. Uh, taken away to the old house. And you kind of, once that happens, I do like what they do because less is more. You don't see Maggie right away, which is very smart by the writers. Um, Maggie is taken away and kind of kept off screen for a little bit.
Mhm.
Uh, I think initially when David sees a woman in Josette's dress, it's not Kathleen Lee Scott initially, and then later it is.
Mhm.
There is you do see Kathleen Lee Scott in Josette's dress. Uh, what did you think of that decision to kind of okay, we're going to pull Kathleen Lee Scott away for a little bit, so people are going to talk about the kidnapping before we show Kathleen Lee Scott's Maggie Evans in the audience.
Definitely made you wonder if she was going to be alive or if she was, gonna pop up somewhere or even maybe become, I don't want to say minion, but something, like almost like some creature of Barnabas is making in a way.
For the memory, they give a little bit of the writers are sort of going instead of Bride of Frankenstein, it's like Bride of Barnabas in a
Mm.
sense. Um, by the way, Bride of Frankenstein, great Blu-ray there, if you haven't. Great black and white movie, fun to watch.
Mm.
But here they're gonna have the plot currently is to drain Maggie of all her blood, make her a vampire. Uh, Billy's gonna build her a coffin in the process, which I'm gonna get into that conversation of him and Fred and Carlin here in a minute because that's hilarious. Um, and then that once Barnabas does this, and what he wants to have happen though is Maggie Evans to embrace Josette in every way, to be Josette, to cease to be Maggie Evans before he drains her of her blood. Uh, so, what did you think of this initial plot here? He wants her to basically cease to be Maggie Evans and be Josette.
Diabolical, like utterly diabolical, and messed up at the same time.
Yeah, really, I got to give the writers credit too. They're making you feel real sorry for Maggie Evans.
Mhm.
What I will give Kathleen Scott the most before the jailbreak ever is even thought about happening is her closing the music box and saying, "I'm Maggie Evans."
Mhm.
Josette's music box. That's one of the most powerful moments prior to her mentally breaking down, which I love because it lets you know, okay, this is the same old Maggie we fell in love with, the feisty waitress who just looked like would knock you on your ass. Um, right? Um, which I love. I love being a fight. I love feisty. That's what I married. But yeah. So, what did you think of that moment there? Kathleen Lee Scott's character closing the music box. I'm Maggie Evans.
It gave you that sense of relief. I mean, I felt relief for sure because, like, oh, okay, so she's not going to be necessarily doomed to this,
Yeah,
but what? How is she going to get out now? Now that she's recovered her memory and she's like, okay, I'm not Joseph, I'm Maggie.
yeah. Okay, Brown's all this stuff. So, but you're right. I agree with you here because it's before the whole getting thrown into the jail cell, the dungeon, if you will, the basement, whatever you want to call it. She gets thrown in a jail cell pretty much and is held prisoner. Which my biggest defense of Barnabas in this whole case and this whole thing was Barnabas was never going to kill Mag, not because he could have done it. So, uh, so, so I'm going to let you play prosecutor on the where am I? Where do you think I'm wrong on this? Go ahead if you want
Well, I mean, he definitely liked to well, not necessarily like, but he definitely had almost no problem torturing her. But I do see where you're coming from that he was never going to kill her because every time he had a chance, he did change his mind, or he would give an excuse about her being too lovely to do away with now. Uh,
You
and
know
I
what's
did see your video from a couple years ago earlier today where you were talking about this actually.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say this. I'm a crazy Dark Shadows fan. Purely and simply. I will defend Barnabas to the death. Or not literally, the the fictional death. So here's the weirdest part I find about all this. John Carlin's Willie Loomis, who has been beat like a redheaded stepchild by our buddy Barnabas. No, with no problem. So right before he goes, and I know I'm jumping in, so I apologize because I want to get into Sarah because it's a great character introduction. But Willie Loomis says something to the effect, "You can't kill that girl. You can't do this. It's wrong." Now, keep in mind what's been going on with this whole storyline. When Willie's got out, when that phone call was made, Willie got his ass handed to him by Barnes. I mean, and that wasn't that long ago from this. So he had a black and blue bar. I mean, it's makeup, it's special effects, but he had a black and blue bar. You know, he got beat with the cane. My what I'm getting at is when Willie has this conversation with Barnabas, you can't kill that girl. I'm waiting for Fritz Barnabas to turn around and just club his ass. But it's when he doesn't that made me raise my. When I first watched this, that's what made me really raise my eyebrows because he doesn't. He just he's listening to him before he goes down there, and that's what I've always found suspicious. I'm thinking, okay, because well, I'll get into this. You they're creeping it. This guy actually has human emotions. He's not just some bloodlet. Because if he
Hmm.
were, well, I mean, by this time Maggie would be a corpse. So, but what's your thoughts on that? I'm sorry, rambling.
Well, doesn't he also, during that conversation, raise the point of, but nobody showed me this kind of mercy, when he
Yeah,
was locked away?
yeah.
He would
That's.
have begged for death.
I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. And also, somebody had asked me, did they ever mention um, Angelique in this whole process? No. What Barnabas says in the movie to verse the series. Now, in the movie, he says, when they put this curse on me, which was, yes, originally meant to be Angelique in the movie, but what Fred says in the series is a tad different. He says, when they came for me. That's not the same thing.
Mm.
Um, so there's no real mention or build up to Angelique prior to her arrival in the series. I wish there were. I know Angelique has been, had been a part of the show by the time you get to 17, when you get to 1795 and past that, yeah, Laura Parker has been part of the show post 1795. So it feels like a long time because 1795 is no short story. Um, so sorry, back on a tangent there. But you're right. No one showed him any mercy when they came for him, and he was chained. He wanted because what we're going to learn is this is why I brought up Joshua too. He wanted his father to end us all. He didn't want to live like this. And if there was one man he thought he could depend on, yeah, Joshua would have been that guy. Which is a great point bringing up. That's where Barnabas's mindset is at. Hey, no one showed this kind of mercy. By the way, the reason Barnabas is a vampire is because he is a horrible shot with a flintlock. Remember this, kids. Remember this. Um, that is exactly why. He, if Solomon Kane would have had that pistol, we wouldn't be having this conversation because he would have shot Angelique in the head, uh, straight up, straight up. And he had two flintlock pistols, not one. Uh, well, Barnabas had two too, but he only used one, so or loaded one. But um, so we do get another ghost. The ghost of Josette isn't really with us throughout this whole kidnapping procedure, but another ghost appears. The ghost name is Sarah Collins, Barnabas's little sister. What did you make of the arrival of Sarah? Because I mean, the ball being tossed in the air outside of Maggie's cell, London Bridge, the singing. What did you make of Ghost of Sarah?
At first thought, I thought maybe it was a hallucination
Yeah,
or something like that. And I was like, who is this girl? And the person who I was watching these with, who actually introduced me to these episodes, had said, I think it's Barnabas's sister. So I'm like, okay, what?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's weird because the groundskeeper says there are three graves. There's father, the mother, the daughter, the little girl, the young child, which is Sarah. And the fourth, the son, is buried somewhere. Um, that's Barnabas. So the ghost of Sarah, it could, you're right, it did sort of feel like it, because by this time Maggie's been starting to break. Um, and she cries, says, little girl. And it's Sarah ignoring her kind of to think that hallucination part. Like, hey, wait, is she seeing a little? But you're seeing it as an audience member too. Like, again, doesn't answer right away. Then, but what helps this, John Carlin's word, that's sort of your hint too. Okay, there's something.
Hmm.
This, I think it's right as David Caesar too. First season outside the old house. But because Willie catches David playing house and says, "Hey, you got to get out of here." And Willie says to Barnabas, "Hey, I saw a kid playing outside the road." And Barnabas kind of gives him the look like, "I thought I told you to keep David away from here." No, no, it wasn't David. It was a little girl. Little girl. You sure? No, Barnabas. He's hallucinating. He's got a concussion from the beatings you gave him. Yes, he's sure. Um, probably does probably have a concussion, but he's not hallucinating. Sure. What did you make of John Carlin seeing the little girl too? It's a great call by the writers.
It helped validity to Maggie's claims about seeing a little girl and showing us that she's um, not losing it entirely in that horrible cell that she's in.
So I do love Jonathan's lines of "She's gone mad."
Mm.
She's gone crazy. And he kind of feels sort of sorry about all of it. Like she's lost it. Like I have no choice but to kill her now. What am I supposed to do here? Um, I'm waiting for the lines. I'm not running a charity here, but that never happens. But yeah, she's locked up. She's been talking to Sarah, and I do love how Sarah helps her escape. She teaches her the psalm to find the secret passage in the jail cell. Yes, they built a secret passage. Again, the old house was built probably around the time of the Revolutionary War. So you
Mm.
gotta keep that in mind. Probably before it. So it's been around. So it was more built out of defense, more so than just a household. Um, I'm not saying it wasn't built for living in, but it was also built for defense too. Um, because Dark Shadows technically takes place in Aura. Just as later on, they're going to mention the goddamn moon. Um, so there's that. But here, she's talking to Sarah. Sarah teaches her the rhyme to the song to help her get out. Maggie makes the escape, and you have one of the greatest chase sequences in the history of a show of Barnabas chasing Maggie through those tunnels, and they've used very long set designs here, leftover set designs. What did you think about the whole sequence?
That was very cool. I kind of wonder if well, not if, but why he didn't know about this secret passage, and it kind of made me wonder about the more about the underground of the house, since she's going through this maze and going up some steps and down some steps, and choice between two different doorways.
I have a bit of a theory about this. Now, I believe, because again, Jonathan Frid was 43 when he played Barnabas.
Mm,
I think they're using Jonathan's real age for Barnabas, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
mm,
And so for Barnabas, the character, he fought in the Revolutionary, or at least fought a part of it, or helped in it in some way. Um, that and the reason he doesn't know about it is because he's away at war, whereas the first two
mm.
people who are going to know about it are the women and children, because the men are going to fight to the goddamn death. Um, back in those days, it's going to be okay. Women and children, you leave. Here's the way. Here's your way out of here. Things go south, you go out this way, so they don't see your ass. Because there's no guarantee the British would have took Porter either.
Mm.
Not saying they wouldn't, but there's no guarantees or something like that either. So that's the two people who would have knew about it, Naomi and Sarah. Uh, in my opinion, I could be wrong. So don't quote me on this. But so that's why I feel Sarah knows more about it. But what I do find interesting
Mm.
about the whole chase sequence, Barnabas never uses his vampire powers to go in front of Maggie to stop her. He's basically letting her escape. I mean, he could just easily teleport ahead of him. Doesn't. Even when she's at laying on the beach, he's coming up and she's laying there. I mean, this guy could kill somebody in a second with his power, and no problem. And as soon as he hears Sam Evans, he disappears like he's Michael Myers. He gets the hell out of Dodge. What did you make of all that insanity? So,
Um, I was thinking about the since I'd seen your video earlier, and then I was finishing up looking at actually uh the clips of the escape and stuff shortly after that on Dark Shadows Fans Unite. And it got me kind of thinking, had we seen him teleport yet in the show?
that's what's crazy. Technically, no, we
Hmm.
had they more. It's more suggested that he can.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not necessarily shown because the biggest suggestion you get from him teleporting or him using powers in a sense when he's outside Maggie's window and the light flashes, he's there one minute, he's gone the next. There's where I go, okay, he
Hmm.
must have teleported. Because, I mean, I'm sure he could have ran, but I doubt it. Not saying he couldn't have ran, just doubt it. So it's not necessarily shown, what I'll say.
Hmm.
But it's hinted. So, and again, he's up into this, before he bites Maggie, The only person he's biting post Willie Loomis, or sorry, when Willie's with him, is either animals or prostitutes. And yes, that is
Hmm.
correct. um, um, but he's again he. Oh God, I missed the coffin thing. Um, so Willie, when Willie's making the coffin, well before they escape, I know all that. Don't you appreciate it? Yeah, whatever. No, I could make you appreciate it. No, no, thank you. Um, so what did you make of Jonathan Frid, Barbas Collins, and John Carlin's Willie Loomis's banter during that whole sequence?
I wonder if it was it planned out for them to do it that way in like the script, or was it just a choice that was made during like rehearsals? And
I
if it
don't
was a
know.
choice made during rehearsals, it was the right choice then.
Yeah, because it's both sort of it's funny in a way because it's like John Carlin is like, nah, I'm good, I'm good. And Fritz Barnabas is like, I could make you appreciate it. And he's serious about that, but it's kind of like it's kind of funny you say that to John Carlin. Because again, he's focused on this. Is what I mean, like he's so focused on turning Maggie into Josette.
Mhm.
Okay, now you're he's sort of sounding like Joshua here. Like I could do both things right here. I could take care of business. Um, but that's Dark Shadows had unintentional comedy moments
Mhm.
that are funny within the context of the show. It's like you really think this dude enjoys building a coffin for a living a person he knows is alive? Are you on drugs? Like seriously, no, seriously. But yeah, I agree with you. I think I don't know if it was just an initial dialogue or it was just that's the way Britt and Carlin chose to do it during after rehearsal. Like, okay, let's do it like this because it comes across a certain way. Whoever made that call, you're a goddamn genius because it works. It just works. Especially when after John Carlin catches Kathleen Lee Scott's Maggie Evans, because starts acting like Josette a bit. Uh, just funny. Oh, by the way, yes, Maggie does try to stake Barnabas, but does not succeed. Obviously, what did you think of that?
Very, very perceptive. I don't know if she necessarily knew exactly what he was, or if it was just, oh, this is something I can use to get rid of him so I can escape. Of course, that didn't go very well at all. It was just, she was so close. And then he woke up.
Yeah, that is the weird thing about because the word vampire is not mentioned until 1795. They don't. Okay, way back when shows started. Yes, they mention Edgar Allan Poe. Uh,
Mhm.
the fall. Welcome to the House of Usher.
Yeah.
Um, but what they don't mention is Bram Stoker's Dracula at all. I mean, even when Barnabas first comes out of the coffin, or at all, it just the first really person to mention that there there are other conditions like Barnabas is Dr. Hoffman. Um,
Mhm.
but that isn't necessarily mentioned in Dracula either. So that's sort of the weird part about BS as a whole. It's like they don't mention, at least from a subtext standpoint or a written context, where, okay, there's this book called Bram Stoker's Dracula, or there's a novel called Dracula. They don't do that at all. What did you think of that? It had to be a conscious decision not to mention it, right? You think?
Yeah, it had to have been. Uh, and kind of with any of them, it seems like they don't make any references to any of the other classics that they ended up doing their own spin on.
Yeah. Because I mean, the things they did with the Phoenix were sort of just made up. Right?
Hmm.
but I mean, because a phoenix is just a mythical bird that every 100 years rises from the ashes. So they added a bunch of stuff to it to make it interesting, terrifying, which is cool. But yes, yes. Dirk Wilkins weighed 100. She would have fought. Still. But yeah, Maggie escapes here. So, in a ditch effort to protect her, Dr. Dave Woodard, Joe Haskell, and Sam Evans are going to lie their asses off. Barnabas is first on the scene at the hospital. I heard the Evans girl was about her. Really? Really? You heard that, did you? Well, she's dead. Um, what did you make of that decision?
Um, I mean, something to play really close to the chest, and I'm surprised that none of them ended up breaking to anybody and saying, well, Maggie's actually still alive, but we got to keep this under wraps. We're still trying to catch that guy. But it never once happens.
What's crazy is there's a conversation between Victoria Winters and Barnabas. Vicky's like, that madman could still be out there, don't you think? Barnabas is like, no. Like, bro, dude, really? Really? Um, but yeah, that whole sequence of them, them, they have a funeral so private, you don't get to see it. Um, so private, only Joe and Sam Evans attended. They don't. There's no real funeral. Um, but they say there is. It's a small private service, as they put it. So Maggie is perceived as dead, so they can send her to Wincliffe to Dr. Willie Hoffman, who, yes, initially was supposed to be Dr. Julius Hoffman. Man, but thank God they had a sex change because they got Grayson Hall. Um, Great actors. What did you? 265, I believe, is her character debut. What did you make of Dr. Julia Hoffman?
Oh, she was hard, especially on Sam and Joe, and rather elusive when it came to Dr. Woodard.
She, the conversations between the characters in that episode are really interesting because you get a lot of Sam and Joe too,
Mm.
where on their way back, Sam says, "Is it Maggie? She didn't want the doctor that Dave didn't want us to see, or was it Doctor Hoffman?" Not meaning as a woman, but meaning as the way her mannerisms were, because she's very cold. You're right. She's
Mhm.
very icy because to her it's like, hey, Maggie's my patient. I'm here to help her. You don't need to interfere. But she did predict what was going to happen when Maggie saw them or when they saw Maggie. And I love what they do here too, because when the nurse leaves them alone with Maggie, it's not Dr. Hoffman who comes in the door to, you know, get them out of there. She's still in her office with Dr. Woodard. The writers made the right call here. I think it'd have been too much if she doesn't. No, it's the nurse who does it, one who let him in to get because Maggie's not responding to them at all. What did you make of that decision?
I was rather surprised. I would have thought it would have been her immediately, especially since she was so prevalent that she didn't want them. She didn't want them there. That she didn't go in there herself. That they not she had the nurse do it instead. Um, which did still make me wonder a little bit if somehow she didn't prompt Maggie to have some sort of response or not. For if their family would come to visit her.
Because she knows we see a sequence between Dr. Hoffman and Maggie. You knew my name earlier. You know it now, and that's when you hear Maggie saying, "Take the key and walk the right." her up. So Maggie doesn't say her name. She's back under the sort of men. She's not very mentally stable,
Hmm.
and that's what Doctor Hoffman is getting at. This woman is not. She asked Sam, "Is that your daughter in there? Is that same girl?" No, it's not. That's what she's getting at, which I like. Dark Shadows was always good with psychology. Now they're using literal psychology now, which is very, very smart. Do you feel that Dr. Hoffman initially was very call check in a way?
Yes, I would say.
Yeah, too. Very investigative. Uh, Strictly business. Now, not as humorous as Carl Kolchak would be at times. Because if you've ever watched The Night Stalker, Darren McGann could be very funny at times with the character. There was some silliness to it. A lot of craziness in that show. So Dr. Hoffman takes a lot of chances too. I mean, she takes Maggie to the cemetery, where Joseph's grave is. That's where Vicky thought she saw Maggie Evans.
Hmm.
She saw a woman with red hair. Back. What did you make of Hoffman doing?
It was risky, but she definitely knew what she was doing. She knew that she had to get her answers somehow, and to, even if it put Maggie potentially in danger, she she's determined to get her answers.
Here's my question for you. My last question for you. If they did another Dark Shadows movie, what would you want to see?
Would this hypothetical be a continuation or a complete reboot?
Whatever you'd like to say. It's your call.
Hmm.
I do this to everybody.
Uh, I'd very much like to see the original characters,
Yeah,
regardless of which it would be.
right.
Um, I'd like to see them explore the world more, even if it was just a complete reboot and they did the same stories. I'd like to maybe see them explore more of the world and maybe even more of Collinsport and the people there, and not
Yeah.
just focus so much on the house and its residents.
If they ever did another movie, and I've said this till I'm blue in my face, do 1795,
Mm,
but do it in a way where your first introduction isn't at Collinwood. It isn't even, you don't have a time travel. You have the events as they're happening. You see a boat on the sea, and it's a very violent storm. And on that ship is Josette, Angelique, the Dupre family
hmm.
coming across the sea. That started off that way and go from there. Work your way toward the whatever you're going to have happen. Whether it's you're going to maybe maybe you change it a bit where okay, Barnabas and Josette are married and then he's cursed. Whatever you're going to have happen. But yes, have Angelique do the cursing. Whatever you're going to have happen. But do it, pace it very slowly, methodically. Don't do it. Uh, that's my story, and I'm sick of it.
Hmm, that's pretty good.
I don't know if I don't know if we'll ever see that, but I'd like to see
Hmm.
that.
It'd be
'Cause
much more like the show too, as opposed to the previous movies we got where everything moved so quickly.
I think too, and I'll defend Dan a little bit. One movie is being filmed when the series is still going. House. And then there's Night of Dark Shadows, which I don't feel was a horrible movie.
Hmm.
I do get why some people don't like it. I don't hate it. I mean, I couldn't, but then again, I like Season of the Witch. So, yes, the movie without Michael Myers. What's your favorite? Some of your favorite scenes from Maggie's kidnapping and escape?
The scene where she wanders off into the cemetery and she meets Barnabas.
Yes.
Um, that bit where we see Jonathan Frid's silhouette at the bedroom doors when he's doing his little attack.
Mhm.
Also the bit with the like I mentioned with the door shaking and stuff, and Vicky runs out of the room. I really like that sequence. The chase sequence and um when David ends up coming into the old house and talking with her briefly, thinking she's Josette's ghost.
Yeah, yeah, because he questions her. Where you been? Where you been? Yeah, David. Good old David. He'll ask the ghost anything. Literally. Uh, the one kid. If you walked in see if David Collins was in the movie Casper, he would just sit there while the ghost did shit. He wouldn't give a damn. He would not. When Ray Stantz says, "Who you gonna call? Somebody else? Call David Collins." Who they should have called. Um, Straight up. Uh, so, one of I have so many sequences, but I love I love the build up to the kidnapping of Maggie, the whole thing from stuff from the time in the dining room to when she's in the house after he. One thing too, the phone call from the phone. What gets really his beat, the phone call from Willie Loomis. You can find her in the cemetery. Um, anytime Willie gets a Katie, I'm there for it. Um, so, but you're right. A lot of the great sequences too. I mean, the door shaking is scary as shit. It's terrifying. It's meant to be too. So, and you're right. The chase sequence is superb. So, great sequences. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Um, I don't think so.
Okay. Um, that has been E.D. Lewis. Link to his channel is going to be in the description box. Go check him out if you haven't already. Go give him a subscription. Can you come back next Sunday?
Uh, yeah, it should be free.
Okay. I will let you pick a topic of Dark Shadows. I picked a couple here. So you
Okay.
message me with a topic and we'll talk about it. It could be anything Dark Shadows related for the most part.
Okay.
So, um, or whatever, Halloween, I don't care. I'll discuss anything horror related. So I will see you next Sunday, dude. Have a good one. Have a good rest of your weekend. And again, go give Edie a follow on Instagram as well. He's on Instagram. Um, have a good night, man.
You as well. Thank you.
Yep, bye bye.